The name's Mickey Hook. I'm a private investigator. This job ain't about justice. Justice. That's a bedtime story. It's about taking hits and getting back up. You do the work, take the pay, and don't think about what it costs you. Names and faces change, but the stories never do. If you're lucky, you make it out in one piece. If you're not, well, the morgue is always open. Chapter 1. The knife pressed against my ribs before I saw the hand holding it.
You're in my seat, friend.
I didn't move, keeping my eyes on the Royal Inn Hotel across the street through the Rain Street window. Gregory Lang was late, and I'd already burned half the night on this stakeout.
I said...
My elbow snapped back, catching him square in the gut. He folded with a wheeze. I twisted off the stool, caught his wrist, and slammed it against the bar's edge. The knife clattered to the floor. Before he could suck in another breath, I had him by the collar, his face pressed against the sticky wood. You picked the wrong seat. I shoved him toward the door. He stumbled, caught himself, and didn't look back. Years in the ring taught me timing. Growing up in Queen City taught me to use it. The bartender kept polishing his glass like nothing happened. The drunk, 3 stools down, didn't even look up. I settled back onto my stool, gaze returning to the window. The rain pooled on the cracked pavement outside, catching the flicker of neon signs. Inside the bar, the air was heavy with smoke and cheap perfume. A tired jazz record played in the background. The guy next to me was deep into his cups.
She left, you know. Packed up her cheap perfume and ran off with that bastard. Left my kids, man, with his ex-wife. Can you believe that?
I didn't answer, keeping my eyes on the hotel. But his voice pressed on, cutting through the smoke.
She said I wasn't good enough. Said a man with a busted hand, no job, ain't much of a man. Now she sings for him up on that stage.
He let out a bitter laugh.
And my kids are stuck with some woman who hates them. This damn city. It chews you up, spits you out, and then has the nerve to ask for more.
He emptied his glass, as if the answer to his problems was somewhere at the bottom. I tried to put the drunk's ramblings on mute, but his words settled in my chest, twisting like a knife on a regret I'd spent too much time trying to stitch shut. Stories like his were a dime a dozen. The crash, that was a storm, and we all felt the rain. But for some of us, it wasn't the economy that broke us. A year ago, I wouldn't have been sitting here, soaking up secondhand misery while I waited for another low-rent job to play out. Back then, I had a respectable gig, a nice suit, a steady paycheck, and enough clout to walk through the front door of a place like this without feeling the bartender size me up as a nobody. But all of that went up in smoke. 16 stakeouts in a year, $24 a pop. A couple $100 a year wasn't enough to keep the heat on or the landlord off my back, but it was all I had. The match flared in my hand. I took a long drag, focus locked on the Royal Inn. A scruffy mutt slinked out of the alley across the street. Its coat was matted and soaked, clinging to its bony frame as it sniffed at the trash cans outside the hotel. Every move was quick and wary, as if expecting a boot to come flying. Its eyes darted around, but there was something else there that made my gut twist. Hunger. Raw, gnawing hunger. I glanced at the rum, the amber liquid catching the light like tarnished brass. My fingers tightened around the glass, the sour bite of the cheap stuff already burning at the back of my throat. I'd been sitting here too long. The low rumble of an engine drew my attention to the window. Headlights pierced the rain, stretching shadows across the cracked pavement as the black car glided into the lot. This was the one. Gregory Lang climbed out, his bulk filling the doorframe as he unfolded himself from the Chrysler Imperial. The suit stretched across his wide shoulders and soft middle as he dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief. His gaze darted across the lot before he hurried into the hotel's lobby, the wet pavement groaning under his weight. Showtime. I stubbed my cigarette in the ashtray, stood, and grabbed the camera from the seat beside me, its weight solid in my hand. It was a Graflex, the compact speed graphic model, small enough to tuck under my trench coat, but reliable enough to capture the details I'd need. I hadn't armed the flash attachment yet. It was tucked away for now. Gemma Choi, a reporter for the Queen City Observer, had lent it to me with a raised brow and a warning.
Bring it back in one piece, Hook, or I'll have your hide.
The blabbering drunk shifted, cradling his splinted hand against his chest while the other clutched his glass like it was the only thing holding him together. He glanced up, bloodshot eyes clouded with whiskey and defeat.
Yeah, walk away. Like you don't see the flames. Like you don't hear a man choking on his own damn misery.
I slung my coat over my shoulder, throwing him a sideways glance. We've all got problems. What the hell makes you think I want to sit here and listen to yours? Without waiting for an answer, I tucked the camera under my coat, adjusted my gray fedora, and stepped out into the city. The drizzle softened the neon signs' glow and muted the city's sounds. I started across the lot, my soles splashing in shallow puddles. The mud had circled back, sniffing at the edge of the lot. I dug into my pocket, pulling out the last half of a tomato sandwich I'd wrapped in wax paper before leaving my apartment. The bread was hard, the tomatoes near mush. It was the only scrap I had left to my name. I hesitated, then tossed it onto the sidewalk. The stray snapped up the sandwich in seconds and swallowed hard. Without a backward glance, he slinked into the alley, body crouched as though expecting another blow from the city that had already beaten him down. Halfway to the fire escape, I caught movement near the dumpster. A scrawny prowler leaned against it, hat pulled low, coat too thin for the weather. He wasn't doing much, just watching. His gaze followed me, a mix of curiosity and something darker. I didn't stop to look. Desperate stragglers like him could be trouble, or they could be ghosts of the city trying to survive another night. The fire escape loomed ahead, rusted and slick from the rain. I tested the first rung. It groaned under my weight. Lucille Lang's voice echoed in my mind as I climbed.
Room 401. I found out he's always in room 401.
Her tone had been bitter rather than broken, like she'd resigned herself to her husband's lies, but still wanted them laid bare. She'd probably seen through the long work meetings and conveniently missing dinner times, each excuse wearing thin by the day. By the time I reached the fourth floor, the rain had eased into a fine mist. The fire escape ended at a narrow platform outside room 401. I crouched low, wiping the fogged glass with my sleeve. The room was small, cramped enough to press its occupants together without suffocating them. A sagging bed, its headboard worn and splintered, held the man perched on its edge. His bony frame folded inward, and his hands gripped his knees, fingers digging in like he was praying for an escape route that wasn't there. Opposite him, a battered dresser leaned against the wall, its surface littered with loose papers and empty glasses. The woman in the tight red dress leaned against it, her petite frame casual but commanding, chestnut brown hair styled in controlled curls. Her face was all sharp angles, her eyes colder than disdain, and though she wasn't yelling, her screaming presence filled the room. Near the window, a wooden chair sat slightly askew, as if shoved aside in a hurry. While on the writing desk, a shut briefcase gleamed with a polished surface that felt absurd in the dingy surroundings. A knock came at the door. The woman froze. her whole body tensing like a wire about to snap. Her head whipped toward the sound, eyes wide with expectation and something close to desperation. She moved quickly, almost tripping, hands trembling as she reached for the doorknob. Gregory Lang stood in the doorway, his massive frame casting a shadow into the dim room. His attention darted, scanning the space before he stepped inside, shoulders hunched like he was bracing for a blow. The woman wasted no time. She seized his arm and pulled him in. The door slammed shut behind them. I raised the camera, its weight steady in my hands. Whatever was happening in room 401 wasn't the kind of affair Lucille Lang had imagined. And I had a feeling things were about to get messy. Inside, Lang stood stiff near the bed, his suit straining against his bulk, hands twitching, looking out of place. The brunette paced near the dresser, her heels striking the floor with clipped urgency. Sharp gestures sliced the air. The red dress clung to her like a second skin, but there was nothing glamorous about the way her shoulders tensed or how her movements faltered. She glanced toward the bed, her lips curling into a sneer. The man on the bed's narrow shoulders hunched forward, hands gripping the mattress edge like it was the only thing keeping him afloat. His focus shifted between the dame and Lang. His lips moved, the faintest murmur reaching me through the glass, just enough to make me strain to catch the words.
You don't understand. It's all in there, Sophie. Your identity, your cons. Someone wanted me to know. If the police get a hold of it, if this gets out, it's over for all of us.
Sophie stopped pacing. Her head snapped toward him, her expression shifting from fury to calculation. Her body stiffened, hands clenching into fists, as veins stood out in her neck when she hissed at him. Not even the muted pane of glass could hide the venom. He shrank back. Lang's eyes narrowed.
Where's the evidence?
The man pointed an unsteady finger toward the battered briefcase on the table.
It's in there.
Lang strode to the briefcase, flipping it open with a rough jerk. The man's voice rose, desperate and shaky.
Photos, phone transcripts, bank records, your real names, your history, everything.
Lang's breathing hitched. His throat worked like he was swallowing broken glass. The papers slipped from his hands and fluttered to the floor. Silence. One heartbeat. Two. Then something in him snapped. Lang's hand dove into his pocket, clumsy, frantic, almost tearing the fabric. The nickel-plated Colt clattered against his palm, and he fumbled to get a grip. The barrel wobbled as he thrust it forward, both hands shaken so hard the muzzle sketched nervous circles in the air as he jabbed it toward the man on the bed.
Don't!
The man threw up his hands.
You won't fix this by killing me. Whoever sent it, they already know.
I raised the camera, the shutter clicking softly as I captured the moment. Sophie moved fast. In one smooth motion, she yanked the man's belt free. She looped it around his wrists, tugging tight until the leather bit into his skin, securing him to the bed frame. The man twisted, his eyes wide and wild, but she didn't flinch. Her face stayed set, cold as a tombstone. Lang shuffled closer, sweat dripping down his face.
I swear, I did not come to kill you. I really don't want this. But it's you or us. And I can't watch everything I've built go up in flames.
You don't have to do this. Please, Lang, I'll give you whatever you want.
Sophie turned on Lang, her face a storm of fury and impatience. She gestured wildly toward the man, her words muffled but unmistakably sharp. Whatever she was saying cut into him, and Lang's face twisted with panic. He reached for his golden $ tie clip, fumbling with the gaudy piece of metal.
You're stalling, Gregory. Stop wasting time and handle it.
Lang's shoulders hunched, grip on the gun faltering as he shook his head in short, frantic jerks.
I can't do it.
Sophie's eyes narrowed, her face hardening as she stepped closer, her heels clicking against the floor.
Yes, you can. You just don't want to.
Lang shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his shoes squeaking faintly against the cheap carpet. His eyes darted around the room.
This isn't right. There's got to be another way.
Sophie closed the distance between them in 2 quick steps, her red dress catching the dim light as she jabbed a finger into his chest.
There's no something else, Gregory. Do it! Or I will!
The man on the bed started thrashing again, his tear-streaked eyes locked on Lang. Lang's grip on the gun tightened, knuckles whitening as the barrel wavered, pointed squarely at the man tied to the bed. His focus shifted to the briefcase on the floor, then back to Sophie, chest rising and falling in shallow gasps.
A chill crawled up my spine. With no piece of my pocket, the poor bastard on the bed wouldn't get out of this unless I did something fast. Smash the glass? Too loud. Shout? Too risky. Lang was wound so tight that one wrong move would make him snap.
The camera felt heavy, cold metal in my grip. My hand moved to the pocket where the attachment lay, feeling the faint ridges of the bulb. My breath hitched as my grasp tightened on the camera. Lang stepped forward, the gun steadying as his hesitation crumbled. My fingers worked quickly, sliding the piece into place. The glass between us felt thinner than ever. With a steady hand and a gut full of bad decisions, I pressed the shutter. The flash exploded like lightning through the night, slicing into the room and painting it in harsh, unnatural light. For an instant, every detail snapped into focus. Lang's wide, terrified eyes, Sophie's angular frame frozen mid-motion, the man on the bed, his face a mask of terror. Pressing myself flat against the damp brick wall, the cold bit through my coat as my heart hammered against my ribs. 4 floors up, with nowhere to run but down a fire escape that might as well have been a shooting gallery. If Lang caught a glimpse of me bolting, I'd be easy target practice. Like it or not, I'd stepped into the story, and there was no stepping back out. Inside, the dim light flickered and bounced off moving shadows. Lang moved first. Something crashed, heavy against wood or metal. A muffled thud followed. Maybe his bulk hitting the dresser or the bed. Footsteps, fast, erratic. Sophie.
What the hell was that? Gregory, check the window!
A rustle of movement, the shuffle of shoes against the floor. A breath, quick and uneven.
I don't know. A flash. There was a flash.
I know there was a damn flash! Go look!
Silence. The window creaked open. Slow. Calculating. My breath hitched, shallow and thin. A faint shuffle reached my ears. A scrape of shoes against the floor. Lang was there. I couldn't see him yet, but I could feel his weight. Hesitant, calculating. The nickel-plated barrel emerged first, sliding out like a serpent testing the air. Lang moved with a predator's patience, slow and methodical. He wasn't searching. He was hunting. Tightening my grip on Gemma's camera, I swung it in a hard, desperate arc, smashing it down onto his wrist just as he leaned further out. The crack of metal meeting bone rang out, and Lang howled, jerking his hand back. The gun tumbled from his grip, bouncing against the windowsill before flipping over and falling inside. It landed with a metallic clatter on the floor, spinning to a stop under the edge of the bed. Lang stumbled back, clutching his wrist, his face twisting in pain and fury.
Who in God's name?
I cut him off with a hard shove, sending him stumbling into the nearby chair.
Hauling myself through the window, Sophie's scream tore through the air, raw and guttural, her eyes blazing. Her hand shot to a stiletto heel discarded on the floor, and before I could take another step, she lunged, swinging it. I ducked just in time. the pointed tip slicing through empty air and slamming into the wall with a dull thud. She didn't hesitate, clawing at me with her free hand, her nails raking across my coat as she tried to knock me off balance. A hard push sent her sprawling onto the floor.
Help! Please!
Bound wrists jerked against the creaking headboard.
Lang was faster than I expected, his large body barreling toward me. His shoulder caught me square in the ribs, driving me back into the dresser. Pain flared hot through my chest, but I gritted my teeth and swung the camera. It connected with his temple, the dull thud reverberating through my arm. He stumbled back, and his hand darted toward the side of the bed, reaching for the gun I'd knocked underneath. "Don't try it!" I kicked the gun further out of reach. Lang roared, his bulk crashing into me. We collided with the dresser, the cheap wood creaking under his weight as papers and trinkets rained onto the floor. His hands grappled for my throat, but slipping under his reach, I drove a hook into his gut. The punch landed clean, all my weight behind it. He wheezed, doubling over, but his sheer size kept him moving forward. Behind him, Sophie was already on her feet, the briefcase clutched in her hands. Her wild eyes darted toward the door. "Don't move!" The words came sharp, but Sophie didn't listen. The briefcase swung in a wide arc, the corner slamming into my ribs and knocking the wind out of me. Staggering back, I watched her bolt for the door. Lang took his chance, throwing himself at me. His bulk sent us both crashing into the bed frame. Stars exploded in my vision, but shaking them off, I caught his wrist mid-swing and twisted hard, forcing his arm back as I drove a knee into his gut. He grunted, his free hand flailing for purchase, but I didn't give him time to recover. A curtain tieback hung within reach. Grabbing it, I yanked it free and looped it around his wrist, securing him to the bedpost. He roared, his other arm lashing out, but I caught it and planted a straight right to his ribs. The blow knocked the fight out of him. Another tieback restrained his free hand, pulled taut against the opposite bedpost. Lang thrashed, his breath ragged and uneven as he cursed. "You picked the wrong fight. Sleep it off." The words came low as I landed a final uppercut to his jaw that sent his head snapping back against the frame. His body went slack, a wheeze escaping his lips.
"She's gone! She took the briefcase!"
No time to waste checking the hallway. My shoes thudded against the floor as I reached the open window and scanned the fog-choked street below. Nothing. Just an empty sidewalk stretching into the haze. The sound came next. Sirens. Low at first, but building fast. Wailing and growing louder, slicing through the quiet. Red police lights bounced off the buildings in the distance. They were closing in. Engines roaring as squad cars turned the corner and sped toward the hotel. Turning back to the room, I took in the scene. Lang hung limp against the bed frame, blood trailing from his mouth. The guy on the bed was thrashing, his eyes wide and wild as they found mine.
Who the hell are you? QCPD?
I ignored the question. The wreckage near the overturned dresser caught my attention. What used to be the camera lay there, a twisted casualty of the scuffle. The lens was cracked, and the flash attachment dangled like a broken limb. Gemma wouldn't care about excuses. She'd probably bury me right next to the thing. Scooping it up, I turned it over. Maybe the film had survived, but Gemma wasn't going to give a damn about that. Perfect ending to a perfect night. Just my damn luck. The man's plea pulled me back.
"Please, untie me. You can't let the cops find me like this."
Stepping closer, I narrowed my focus as I studied him. The panic etched across his face rang a bell I didn't like. Recognition landed hard. Alderman Parker. His face twisted as the weight of my words settled in. His campaign posters had been plastered on every lamppost in the city, promising to clean up the streets and bring integrity back to politics. And now here he was, tied to a bed in the dump like this, caught up in Lang and Sophie's sick game.
"Please, you can't let the cops find me here. If this gets out,
The pounding of boots echoed from the hallway, cutting off his plea. Voices barked orders, their crackle bouncing off the walls as the chaos outside grew louder. I glanced at the window, but the moment was gone. The door burst open, splinters flying as it slammed against the wall. 2 coppers stormed in, their guns raised, scanning the wreckage. One with thick eyebrows locked onto me immediately.
Hands where I can see 'em.
The camera dangled from my fingers, my expression flat. "You're late." My tone was dry as the cigarette I wished I had. Thick eyebrows' shout cut through the tension.
I said hands in the air.
His gun stayed trained on me as he darted a glance over the room, trying to make sense of the chaos. Raising my hands slowly enough to make a point, I cut a glance toward Lang. "There's your guy, but if you're smart, you'll get moving. There's a red dress slipping through your fingers." Officer Eyebrow's gaze snapped back to me, suspicion in his stare.
And who the hell are you?
A steady look. Then I jerked my chin toward my coat pocket. "Queen City Private Eye. Cards in the pocket if you want to make it official." The bull hesitated, then motioned for his partner, who had a big nose and thin lips, to check. My hands stayed where they could see them. "You gonna waste time on me, or go after the dame before she gets away for good?" Eyebrows glanced around, his face knitting together as he took in the scene. His partner stepped in behind him, gun lowered, his expression a mix of confusion and wariness.
"What in the hell am I looking at?"
The thin-lipped cop squinted at the chaos.
"This don't look like the shooting we got a call for."
"Shooting?" His words played in my mind. The gun never went off. Made me wonder whose game I'd walked into. My stare passed between Lang and Parker, whose face was a mix of guilt and desperation. "You'll want to start with the guy tied to the bed. The conscious one." I nodded toward Parker. "He knows more than I do." Eyebrows opened his mouth to say something, but stopped, unsure where to start. The confusion in the room was palpable, and I wasn't getting paid to sort it out. Let them piece it together. Loose ends had a way of strangling the wrong people, and I didn't plan on being one of them. Leaving the confusion behind, I had another name on my mind, and another door to knock on. Rain slid off my hat in fat drops as I stared at a polished door that screamed class. The kind that didn't usually open for guys like me. The city hummed behind me, its restless tune a symphony of damp streets and distant engines. I knocked hard enough to send the sound echoing through whatever secrets lay behind the entrance. For a breath, there was only the buzz of a street lamp. Then the door opened, slow and deliberate, like the opening act of a play. Lucille Lang leaned against the frame, wrapped in yellow silk and temptation. The robe hugged her figure in all the ways she wanted it to, feathers at the edges soft and indulgent. Her red hair spilled over her shoulders, catching the chandelier's light. Red lips curled into a smile that said she owned the stage and everyone on it.
"Mickey."
Her voice was smooth as a scam artist's pitch. Her eyebrows lifted in mock surprise as she swept her gaze over me, taking in the damp coat, the rain-soaked scowl.
"You look like you've been through hell."
She flicked another glance over me, sharp and calculating beneath the charm.
"Did you find anything?"
I didn't answer. I reached into my pocket and pulled out Lang's tie clip, holding it up. The cheap metal, shaped like a dollar sign, glinted, gaudy and tacky. A perfect match for the man who wore it. Her smile faltered, a hairline crack in her perfect facade. Curiosity flared in her eyes before she smothered it under another layer of sweetness. "Enough!" Without waiting for an invitation, I stepped inside. I pressed the tie clip into her hand as I brushed past her. She turned it over in her fingers, studying it with that same feigned innocence she wore. The air inside was almost jarring as the smell of expensive perfume hit me hard. In the corner, a slick, pretty boy lounged on the couch. He looked like he was auditioning for a cheap gangster flick. His tie hung loose, shirt half unbuttoned, showing off a chiseled chest he was clearly proud of. A smug grin curled around the cigarette dangling from his lips, the kind that made you want to wipe it off with a fist. He raised an eyebrow at me, then glanced at Lucille like I was some kind of punchline. Lucille stepped aside gracefully, one hand resting on the edge of the door. Her hand toyed absently with the tie clip as she spoke.
Come in. I'd hate for you to catch a chill.
Who's your friend? I nodded toward the peacock on the couch.
Oh, him?
Lucille's smile widened. She flicked the tie clip from her fingers as if it were a worthless trinket, letting it clatter onto the side table.
He's just the maintenance man. Came to fix the radiator.
That what they're calling it these days? I pulled the photos from my coat and tossed them onto the table with a deliberate flick. The glossy prints slid across the surface, stopping short of the ashtray. Thought you'd appreciate tonight's highlights. Lucille glanced at the photos.
Oh, Mickey, this looks dramatic. Should I be impressed?
I stepped closer. You should be concerned. Your husband, an alderman, a gun, a woman in a red dress. You knew this wasn't about infidelity when you came to see me, so why don't you save me the song and dance? She tilted her head.
You've lost me.
She crossed sweetly to the sideboard where a cigarette case rested. Lucille plucked one out with deliberate precision, holding it between her fingers as she turned back toward me. The cigarette rose to her lips. The match hovered, untouched. She didn't strike it, just waited, eyes on me. I didn't move. Her eyes sparked with amusement as she struck the match herself, the flame casting flicker and shadows across her face. She brought it to the cigarette and took a slow drag, her lips curving. Then she leaned closer, exhaling smoke in a sinuous curl that drifted between us.
Go on. What are you accusing me of?
The phone call to the police about the shooting was your move. You wanted this to blow up in his face. You just needed me to catch him in the act when he pulled the trigger. She let out a low laugh, tapping ash into a crystal tray.
You think so little of me. I'm just a neglected wife with a philandering husband. Surely you don't believe I'm capable of all this.
I stepped closer, my fists clenching. Spare me the theatrics. You didn't give a damn who got hurt as long as Gregory was out of the picture, and his dirty money stayed in your pocket.
That's quite a story, Mickey. Got anything to back it up?
She leaned against the table, her robe slipping just enough to tease. I stood tall, arms crossed. No proof, just the truth. But let's not pretend you're sitting here writing sympathy cards for Gregory. Lucille tilted her head, letting her hair spill over one side, her fingers idly playing with the edge of her robe.
I must admit, I'm surprised Gregory made it out alive tonight. All that commotion, all those guns. He's lucky he didn't end up shot by accident. Not that it matters. He'll be off to prison now, won't he? Poor me, though. Whatever will I do without him? He must have been doing this for years. Just think of all that blackmail. All that money. It's so much to handle alone.
The pretty boy on the couch let out a low chuckle, raising his glass in a lazy toast.
Sounds like she's got it all wrapped up. Doesn't she, Detective?
You got something to say, Slick? Or are you just here to fetch your drinks? I shot him a glare. He opened his mouth to speak, but thought better of it, settling for a smirk and another swirl of his drink. Lucille's smile deepened. She stubbed out her cigarette with a slow twist of her wrist. the crystal ashtray catching the dim light. Her eyes sparkled with amusement as she turned back to me, tilting her head like she was surveying a piece of art she'd just acquired.
It's Queen City, Mickey. You do what you have to. But enough about business.
She flicked a glance toward the man on the couch as he stood and made his way toward us.
Why don't you stay for a drink? Tonight's a celebration, after all. And we wouldn't mind having you take part in the fun.
Her hand drifted lazily to the tie hanging around her boy toy's neck. She gave it a playful tug, pulling him toward her just enough to make him grin. But she wasn't looking at him anymore. She moved toward me with deliberate grace, the silk of her robe trailing like smoke. Her perfume was stronger now, heady and overwhelming. Brushing my tie lightly, she tilted her head and smiled.
Come on, Mickey. Don't be so uptight. You're the reason we're celebrating. Why not join us? After all, you deserve it.
Her body pressed a fraction closer, just enough to feel the give of her hip against mine. Behind her, the pretty boy chuckled, watching like this was his favorite show.
You've been working so hard. Why not let loose for once? It's not every day you get to help a girl like me start fresh.
Her lips grazed my ear, not quite a touch, just a promise.
What's the matter, Mickey? Afraid you might enjoy yourself?
For half a second, the room tilted. The warmth of her breath washed over my neck, and my hand almost lifted of its own accord, almost found her waist. Almost. If I wanted a circus, I'd buy a ticket. The pretty boy frowned, strutting forward with a swagger that didn't match his soft edges.
Better mind your manners, fella.
My fist responded for me, slamming into his jaw with a satisfying crack. He staggered back, and before he could react, I grabbed him by the back of the neck and drove his face down into the polished oak table. The impact echoed through the room, followed by a dull thud as he crumpled to the floor in a heap. Lucille didn't rush to his side, didn't even flinch as she watched her lover groan on the ground. She tilted her head, almost like she was savoring the moment.
Why'd you have to go and do a thing like that?
I shrugged, brushing a fleck of blood off my knuckle. He's got the kind of face that begs for it. Lucille stepped closer, her silk robe gliding over the floor. Running her hand up my chest, soft and deliberate, she traced the damp fabric of my coat. You really have no shame, do you?
Shame?
She chuckled, her voice like silk over razor blades, nails grazing my collar.
Oh, Mickey. Shame's for people who lose. And tonight, I'm winning.
She stepped back, her grin predatory in the lamplight.
And you, Mickey.
She tilted her head.
Not exactly a power player, are you? $25 bought your soul for the night.
24.
That's all it took to make you my errand boy. But don't worry, I'll find plenty of ways to keep you busy.
She glided to the sideboard, her movements deliberate, every sway calculated. Opening a drawer, she pulled out a checkbook with a flourish, scribbling something across the paper. Turning back to me, she held it between two manicured fingers.
Here, another 24 for your trouble. A little bonus for playing the part so well. Stick around. Who knows? There might be more where that came from.
I stared at the check, my jaw tightening. Her grin deepened, the check lingering in the air between us, daring me to take it, to crawl. I shoved my hands into my coat pockets. Keep it. You got nothing I want. Her smile didn't falter. It widened, spreading like oil over water.
Suit yourself.
She set the check down on the edge of the table.
But don't kid yourself, Mickey. You'll be back. They always come back. Fun's hard to resist in this town.
I turned toward the door, but her gaze stayed with me. I was nearly out when her voice hit me from behind.
Oh, and Mickey? Thanks for taking Gregory off my hands. He really was getting dull.
Without a word, I stepped out into the night. The mist draped the neighborhood, thick and impenetrable, muting the city's edges into a shapeless blur. I lit a cigarette, the flame catching briefly in the gloom. The first drag bit at my lungs, a stark reminder that I was still breathing in this hellhole of a city. As I exhaled, in the distance, a shape stirred at the edge of the street, bare feet brushing softly against the wet pavement. My hand froze, the cigarette hovering near my lips. Then I saw her, a flash of red, stark and deliberate against the gray. Sophie. She stood at the corner beneath the flicker of a failing street lamp. Her head tilted slightly, locked on me. The low growl of an engine broke the silence, and a cab slithered out of the fog. Sophie raised an arm, her movements fluid and unhurried. The cab rolled to the curb, brakes hissing, and she slipped inside with a quick, deliberate motion. Her head turning just enough to remind me she wasn't running. She was planning. I took a step forward, but the cab was already pulling away. The taillights blurred into the mist, disappearing into the city's cold embrace. I squinted after them, desperate to catch the plate, but the night swallowed it, leaving me alone in the damp void. Twice now she's given me the slip. Maybe this racket ain't for me. The words came bitter on my tongue. I stared at the spot where she'd been, questions racing through my mind, none with answers I wanted to find. The game was always rigged in Queen City, and the best you could hope for was staying a step ahead. Tonight, I wasn't sure if I'd gained a step or lost one. I flicked the cigarette into the gutter, the ember hissing as it hit the water. The night wrapped around me like an old coat as I walked deeper into the city. I used to introduce myself as Mickey Hook, Private Eye, but after that night, I didn't feel like much of a detective. Mickey Hook ain't done yet. The cover-up begins in The Stolen Life Caper. Available now on Amazon.
The end. We hope you've enjoyed this production of
Queen City Private Eye, The Setup Caper by C. Michaels, made with Spoken.